Another great morning. I'm going to go downstairs to, just check on my sub count. All right, turn on the TV and wait, 99,000. Oh my God, it's finally here. I just can't believe it. What was that? What was that knocking noise? Is someone at the door? I wonder who could be at my door. Oh, Logan! What are you holding? What is this? Slogan doll and Mr. Least. You guys want to collab on a food lunch product? Oh my. Well, slow down. One at a time, ladies. I know I'm a big hit now, but I don't have the time right now. Excuse me. Being this being you know how it is, having 100K. It's just like this every morning. Well, I'll get to that later, but now I wanted to go through my complete game development timeline and, go through some old experiences, what I did wrong with old things, what I did right, so that maybe you can learn a thing or two. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy. This is the complete timeline of all of my Roblox games. Hello. So yeah, like I said earlier, I wanted to do this video for a while where I go over the essentially complete timeline of every experience I've made up until this point, just so I can kind of teach some things on, say, what I did wrong when making a game, what I did right. There could be some good like learning bits in that, and it'd be cool just to provide a realistic expectation of success, because this timeline is over 5 years long, and quite frankly, every experience up until like the last 6 months I view as kind of like big pot of like steaming diarrhea. I shouldn't say that, but let me visualize it. I'm gonna make a graph. The x-axis is time, the y-axis is going to be quality, and this is like the poo line. Like once your game escapes this, then it's like good, so your skill is like exponential, so it's like it'll only be good like after say a bunch of years of trial and error and stuff. And what I'm saying is I've only just recently escaped the bubbling diarrhea layer of quality. At least that's how I see it in my own eyes. But regardless, even if a majority of this timeline is pure sludge, I still think it would be funny to go over. But yeah, I'm going to start 5 years ago. This was my first fully released project. I dabbled before with just like messing around and stuff, but I really only dedicated my time to finish something with this game called The Sewers. And the gameplay premise is effectively you walking. The smoke particle obstructs all of your vision. There's a ton of things wrong with this. Yes, my first fully fledged experience was a horror project. I don't think even at the time I meant for this to be anything crazy. I think I was just kind of dipping my toes into the water, if you will, just kind of trying to learn some sense of map building and gameplay. There is an enemy here. You can only tell by the health bar, as the lighting is pretty atrocious. Oh, I forgot I have a flashlight. Yeah, it's the enemies in this consist of free model recolored zombies. Yeah, I mean, it's the first game pretty much. I'm not gonna go too harsh on it, but you can see what the issues were. A ton of free models. Not that a little free model use is bad, but these guns used pretty poor scripts, as in they only killed people on your screen. How do I explain this? If you don't know, there's client side stuff. So if I shoot someone with this gun, they'll die on my screen, but on their screen they'll still be alive. It's kind of complicated if you don't know it, but point is the gun scripts were free and poo. But yeah, you just wander these halls looking for the way out, essentially. So you could equate it most to an adventure map, but yeah, the gameplay is just so slow, and there's no replayability. It's your first game's never gonna do well, by the way, so don't get like discouraged if it doesn't have any player count, because the whole graph thing. You gotta practice for a while. But I want to drag myself to the end of this map. I kind of lost myself. There's a really funny boss fight once you get to the end of the maze. Low-key think it's impossible. Yeah, it's a big zombie with a slightly higher walk speed value than you, so I'm pretty sure you can't even beat this damn game. But yeah, this is the final boss, by the way. What do you win? You win the ability to go back to the start. It is kind of cute though how there is like custom art. I think, yeah, I kind of win went all out, if you will, with this these drawings. Am I right? Hey, look though, this actually got over 1,000 visits, which that's not shabby actually for a first experience. But if I had to summarize what I learned is learn how to code first before starting a full project. I mean, the not knowing how to code is what led me to use broken guns, free zombies, and stuff that just made it look super tacky. So that's pretty much the summary of what I did wrong there. For what I did right, I mean, honestly, not much, being realistic, but these builds aren't the worst. Honestly, this map could be cool in a better scripted project. Yeah, I don't even hate the map that much. So yeah, and well, that's it. That's my first full game 5 freaking years ago. I have like the timeline written down. There's a freaking 1.6 year jump between this and the next full game. So I don't know. It was probably like I left to play Terraria or something and then came back a year and a half later. But but yes, so 3.5 years ago, I made a game called A Normal Day at the Water Plant. It actually did worse than the first one. This is when I was still binging Alvin Block's videos, trying to at least learn some amount of coding. But I will say the coding is better in this one than the first one. There's a little slip mechanic if you step on the water right there. But basically what this game is about is that you're a factory worker, I presume. I don't know exactly what I was thinking during this time, to be honest. And you can press this button and water that kills you spills out. Full disclosure, the water you're about to see is the most primitive, like, trash water ever. It's just a bunch of balls. The point is, I learned some scripting by this point. There's this door right here, which if you step on the button, there should be a door that I swear it used to work. There's supposed to be a door that stops the water from getting in. But yeah, this game mostly uses the dot touched event. That's probably what I was learning at the time. If we touch, the water. Yeah. So the issues with this game were, again, that it has no replayability. This is effectively the only ending is that you eventually get like drowned out. The most basic gameplay, one ending. That's where we went wrong here. I'm like trying to think of the good elements, but I'm kind of blanking, to be honest. I mean, it was an improvement in the fact that there's more custom coding by me, but I mean, the map's all right. This next game is called The Game of Life, and it's inspired by a pretty famous coding project someone made a while back called, Conway's Game of Life, in the sense that it's a cell simulation. So I like this thumbnail. It's funny. I made this one 3.2 years ago, so roughly 3 months after the water factory thing that we just went over. So the gameplay, I've noticed, is getting worse between the 3 games we just went over, because this one's gameplay is just looking at the ground. Okay, that's unfair. It's really not meant to be a playable thing. It's more of a tech demo, kind of seeing what I can do with scripts, essentially. And I actually think this is cool looking back on it. I mean, I'm genuinely surprised I was able to make something like this with as smooth of a brain as I had at the time, because this was pretty complicated, like the cell structures combining and forming with their different functions. You'll notice there's like little organisms, as in clumps of cells that group together. And I mean, each of these has a unique function too. So there's like reproducing ones, killer ones, normals, and etc. So yeah, I actually think this was a pretty decent leap forward. Its only issue being that there's nothing to do but look. I also learned dev products at this time, so you can buy viruses. You want to like screw with the ecosystem down here. Where's the virus that I spawned? Yeah, it's right here. It just converts other cells to viruses. But yeah, so the point is that a bunch of microorganisms form eventually, and that's it. You just see where the environment grows to. For the things I did right about this game, I would say the scripting took a pretty massive leap forward. I also kind of freak with some of the builds. This is a little information booth about each one, but yeah, essentially I put a lot more effort into scripting and learning how to script, and on top of that, there's a noticeable lack of free models. So that's a pretty big takeaway, is the more free models you add, the more tacky and poo a game will look, right? So it's good that there's a low amount, if any, honestly. What I could have improved here is straight up the fact that there's no gameplay or anything to do really. I could have added like a freaking gambling machine or something to at least keep people entertained. Not really, but you get the idea. Like there's no progression or like anything like that to keep people around. So, but you know, maybe that's not what the intention was. So this is kind of a thing in its own realm. I don't really know what to say, to be honest, but yeah, that was the game of life. It sadly never got a next version. Okay, that's pretty much the end of like the dark ages. The rest of these are at least playable. It's still very flawed and dated, but they start to come together. And also this is kind of when I really like got to work, if you will. Like some of these I was cranking out, like there's not even a time gap between these two. This is some pretty insane dates. I was cranking these out like an 1800s family cranks out kids, you know, like that's kind of the rate I was on with this. But the next game in the lineage is robotics. I made this roughly 2.8 years ago. Okay, this low-key was my peak for a while. This is actually very clean, and there's a ton of like cool custom coding. You can see the builds are good too. This was so ahead of its time. I peaked here and I never came back here for like such a long time. I don't know why I like locked in for this, but yeah, you like put an array of guns onto your mech, and there's a ton of like gears you can put on too that have different functions. Like this one makes you fly. There's just so much like cool little small things in here. A lot of these don't make any sense. Like there's no gameplay advantage to having this on your robot, but freak it, am I right? Let's put a few of those there. But yeah, you deploy and you switch your ability right here and your weapon right there. So I'm gonna see if I can find some of the AI robot enemies like this guy. Look, let me try and activate the flying device. Yo, yeah, this was done by just having a plate underneath that tweens upward. Actually, no, there's no tweens. I moved it up with a for loop in the position. I didn't know what tween service was at the time. Let's test out the self-destruct bomb. I'm sure this one great. Wow. Yeah, look at that respawn screen. This was just so ahead of like everything else I made at this time. I'm super like happy with this. The only reason I took it down was because it was super unoptimized and buggy. If enough people want to, I can put it back up, but there's quite a few issues like lag due to poor coding, bugginess. Sometimes when you like spawn the robot, it won't have wheels, for example. But I mean, other than that, it was so ahead of its time. I might actually make this public again. What I would say I did well here is honestly the replayability is there. Like you can progress by getting more metal from killing enemies. Progression allows you to place more parts on your mech too, so there's good progression. I think the gameplay is fun when there's other people. It's kind of repetitive, but who cares, right? It's a creative idea too, so I really look back fondly upon this one. But yeah, that is robotics. This next one is called Super Obby World. It was made 2.5 years ago, and it's a strong nosedive in quality from the previous experience we just looked at. I mean, it's cute in that there's a bunch of like fun little art pieces and like level design mechanics and such, but it's something. So at this point, I would say I binged enough Alvin blocks to at least know a lot of basic scripting stuff. So yeah, basically this is like Mario. You know how there's like these stage buttons you walk on? There's a shop with some pretty interesting items to pretty much either help you beat the levels or for some reason make it harder. Can I buy this? Yeah. If you eat this, you become large, and I think it reduces your jump. Right off the bat, some questionable mechanics, but oh my god, yeah. And resetting makes you play the whole intro again. There's a few problems with this. Oh shoot, I forgot there was a story. Yep. Didn't have any artists I could afford to commission at the time, let's just say. So basically you're finding your lost friend. I'm gonna skip you the hassle. But yes, it's a standard platformer. It's really not bad. I've been ragging on it too much, but it has its issues, as in this is a little thing, but if we look at this tweening block right here, it's done on the server, which if you don't know, makes for a pretty laggy and jittery tween. The UI is pretty tacky, but it could be worse. It's just too bare bones. I don't know how exactly to word this, but there's not very much gameplay diversity. There's no double jumps, no like wall climbing or like anything from a typical platformer. It's just a standard ass obby, but the worlds are interesting, I suppose. So it's not all bad really. If I can get to it, there's a bug with the jump pads that I'm pretty sure made this unplayable. Also these moving blocks, as you can see here, don't drag you with them as they're moving, making for some pretty annoying parkour segments right there. So the issues with this game mostly sum up to a death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing, where there's a bunch of small glitches or inconsistencies that make it kind of unenjoyable. Overall, yeah, there it is. This freaking jump pad. What was I doing? Why does it do that? Oh my god, I remember this. I was making this in studio and I remember finding this bug initially. It's one of those moments where it like works on studio, but in the actual game it doesn't. It's so weird. But I never took the time to replace the code, so it's this is like comically bad. Why does it go this high? Yeah, I just won there. Just some very bland elements lead to kind of an unenjoyable experience. Like there was no like cool win animation right there. It just warped me back, for example. So it's really just a bunch of small things that were wrong. But what's good about this is that it's single player, meaning you don't need a pre-established fan base to have players necessarily, which is good if you're starting out. I'm probably going to delve into this later, but the world building's unique too. I actually kind of like it. Like there's this guy and I'm pretty sure Cuphead's here for some reason. It's pretty unique. I did enjoy making this, but yeah. The next game is called Build a Town, and this is still up on my group. This is kind of a fan favorite, at least in my Discord, and it did very well. In all honesty, 1.6 million visits. I made this 2.3 years ago-ish. Yeah, let's just play it. I think I know what made it do well. So if we log in, I guess it's nighttime. I don't know why. It should start as daytime, but it's night. This is effectively a Sims-like game where you build a city, you buy like buildings here, and it's all in hopes of growing your population and making them happier and, you know, feeding them so they don't starve to death. It's really just a town maintenance kind of game, and I think I really got something right here. I would say this is my first successful project, genuinely, and let me explain why. At this point, I would say I did not have any sort of fan base. I don't think I even had a server or a channel, and if you're in that position, ideally you would make a single player, heavily progression-based game, which is exactly what this is. This is quite literally single player. Look, one player server size. So you don't need a pre-established fan base for new people to enjoy it. If you are trying to make a multiplayer game, but you don't have a fan base, the new players aren't going to have people to play with. So that's why single player stuff like this is a very wise play. Since it's so progression based, as in you have to slowly build up a town, it kept people playing for a long time. So that kind of blend of things really helped me get going. So I would place a lot of weight on the significance of this game, in all honesty. It has the classic crappy UI boxes, but the gameplay kind of carried that kind of tackiness. I was still learning my build style, my modeling style, so a lot of the buildings like a little peculiar. They're fine enough, like it's really fine. But yeah, basically the initial small group of people actually staying and continuing to play this kind of motivated me, right? It was very nice to see that for the first time, and yeah, I just think I got something right with a good enough progression system and an enjoyable single player experience. So that's Build a Town. I look back on this one very fondly, honestly. So, but yeah, that's all for this game. Ethical apple farm. I made this, 1.9 years ago. This is kind of the same exact thing as Build-A-Town, both in visits and player count. Look, this is Build-A-Town stats, and this is Ethical apple farm. EAF did a little better. What I mean by this is the same exact game, pretty much. It's a tile-based kind of world-building game where it's the same thing. Like, how do I explain it better? You place trees instead of buildings, like offices. Just try and earn as much money as you can via apple farming. I would say the GUIs are a decent leap forward compared to Build-A-Town. Like, I low-key, I freak with some of these GUIs. I mean, the overall atmosphere is a pretty decent bit better. I think a leap of build skill and GUI skill both occurred right after Build-A-Town, which combined with me reusing the same successful formula made a pretty good game. But yeah, you basically you buy trees from the store, go back to your plot and plant them. It's a pretty typical farming sim. What made this stand out, I think, is some pretty interesting lore elements, in all honesty. Like, if you go to the heaven freaking portal here, there's you can meet the apple god. There's some pretty unique gameplay decisions, which I think actually made people like this more. It's hard to stand out from a lot of like generic simulators and stuff, so having that kind of special touch will go a long way. I know it's dark, but you can kind of see my modeling style. Oh, stupid ass turret. Point is, my modeling got better too. So if I had to summarize this, it's again, heavily progression based farming sim that you only need to play by yourself if you so choose to. You can play with other people in this one, unlike the previous game, but it's effectively single player. So it's the same formula I used for the previous game, but again, and better. I think the takeaway as to why these two did well is the focus on long-term progression. As in, there's a bunch of buildings that are end game, if you will, that you try and grind for. It keeps people playing for a while is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, that's Ethical Apple Farm. This next one I made 1.7 years ago, and this one's still public, so I only made this public because it's funny. This game's kind of ass, if I'm gonna be honest. It's Giant Dog Survival. I made a whole video on it before because I just think it's funny. Once you log in, you're immediately met with a message that says, "This is a tribute to my pets in real life," but you fight them. Yeah, it's interesting for sure. Basically, you enter the backyard, right? And you're in this rainy, murky backyard environment, and there's these crates, and you can open them up, and they have resources which you can build with. So if I place this table down, I can build walls and, effectively build a base. The scripting in this game is not bad, in all honesty. I managed to do a custom inventory, which at the time I thought was an impossible programming task to do, but I managed it. I made my own gun code. You can see this. This is a model as well that I made, so everything here is not a free model. So it's really not that bad. But the issue is just there's no progression. Like, I think I'm about to get eaten by this freaking... Yeah, there's no progression like the previous two, and I think this did a lot worse. Yeah, only 3,000 visits, and I think that's because the end of the game is just surviving for 1,000 seconds, which isn't that much. And once you do that, you're done. So it wasn't just really good at keeping players around, is what I'm trying to say. But the pros, what I did good, I think, is the whole building, crafting, and resource management system is really cool. I love games with that, so that was a scripting challenge for sure, but I overcame it. It's just I needed to think about the gameplay a little more and how to keep players playing, right? But yeah, that's Giant Dog Survival. Alrighty. Cone Survival Sandbox. If you're old as hell, you will remember this from the very early days of the channel. I think this was the 5th video ever. Yep. I made this 1.6 years ago, and this game, in all honesty, was not that great. It ripped the build system from Giant Dog Survival, so I effectively copied and pasted that into this game. The resource management is different. There's not crates that drop. Rather, you mine trees, right, for the resources. So I changed that element, and I also added animals, which is pretty cool. I modeled these myself too. Damn. It's kind of freaked up. They like bleed and run away from you. What the hell was I doing? This bear model looks goofy as hell. What the heck? But most of the models are all right, I think. But yeah, this is effectively your generic survival game. As we can see, it has the same build menu from Giant Dog Survival with a few more items like the bed, bookshelf, carpet. It's like some decorational stuff. A monkey painting for... Okay, I don't know why the hell I added that, but... And yeah, so it's kind of the same idea. You build a base, you just live, eat, hunt. You can level up your base stats by eating hearts for... Jesus Christ. By eating hearts. I'm gonna try and fight this ant. Let's see how this goes. Okay. But yeah, I mean, looking around, I actually kind of like this environment. It's not bad by any means. It's just, I'm trying to think of what went wrong, because I don't think this got many visits. It got 15,000. That's decent, especially for where I was at the time, but it didn't do outstanding. Probably because there's not much of a tutorial at all. It just kind of throws you in. So I imagine a lot of new or younger players are left clueless. There's an element of progression, but I think it could be done better. The only thing you can truly progress, as in the only save data, really, is the level you are. Right now it says night 2. That can increase, but your builds don't save. Nothing else really saves, so I think that could have been done better. I don't know. This is really hard to commentate on. I think I'm just gonna leave it here. Even though it ripped a lot of the code from Giant Dog Survival, I like this one. This was a fun little project. But yeah, that is Cone's Survival Sandbox. Don't Fall is another one I made a video on. I made that roughly 1.5 years ago, and this is definitely one of the most bare bones ones so far. This lobby is kind of chill. Look, there's a little billboard and an obby. I think I need to invite some of my Discord members. One moment. But yes, Don't Fall was a spleef game, and it did mid as well, 10,000 visits, and I would likely attribute that to a lack of variety. Like it's the effectively the same game mode over and over again, with the same items, nothing you can upgrade. It's just not fleshed out enough to be really good is what I would say about that. But at its core, it's kind of cool. Look, it loads a tile map, and you shoot out you shoot out tiles from underneath people. You can unleash like ungodly farts onto people. Oh wait, that might be that's the gas grenade, my bad. I think it's supposed to be a smoke bomb. Oh look, there's even clearly very intelligent AI enemies. It's a small game, but it's pretty cute, and it just hasn't been worked on enough. If I was to sum up the issues with it, like there's not enough reasons to keep playing. It's the same thing over and over. But as for items, there's a pretty wide variety. I win. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Don't Fall. Great game. Unlike this thing. Ugh. The games up until this point have been like pretty decent, not great by any means. There's their flaws, right? But this is like the dark ages, bro. I hate this game, and everyone like is telling me to unprivate it. This is like a staunch dip into like back into the diarrhea layer I talked about at the start. I made this 1.3 years ago, again for a video. This was more supposed to just be a fun like server event. This was never meant to be a permanent game. But if we look down here, people really liked it, and for the love of God, I'm still wondering why, but I'll come up with something. I privated it because I really just don't like it. I like to think I've grown a lot from this poo ass game. This is effectively a hangout game because that's how little there is to do. There's even a few free models, which I pretty much abandoned for the previous games. I didn't use many, if any, free models, but I think this radio is one. Yeah, it's just kind of a eating restaurant kind of hangout game, but you can kill each other, which I think people found entertaining, was the fact that you can murder people. So take that information as you will. If I had to guess why this had so many visits, I would likely attribute it to it being a mindless, fun kind of situation where you just log on to, bash in the skull of another player with a crowbar, which is something you can do in this game for some reason. Other than that, though, there's cooking. Oh, damn it, I just ate a raw patty. You can like turn up this grill, and there's some cool things. Like you put the patty on the grill, it'll cook. There's a little touch of cool scripting, right? But I just really don't like the overall feel of this game. Yeah, I mean, I would just attribute the mindless murder to the success. People like that, I guess. So what I did wrong though is I could have put way more effort into building UI. I actually don't think there's any UI. The tools are janky. Like this rocket sometimes works. It's just very tacky, janky, that kind of feel. So that's about all I have to say about this game. See you never, Peaceful Restaurant. Manhunt, which I made 1.2 years ago, is a lot better. Thankfully, we got out of the diarrhea layer again. we like went back and then out again. This was when Dream was still doing those manhunts, so it was obviously the inspiration. And this got 40,000 visits, which is one of the better ones, but still not great. There's a pet system, which is cool. If you get wins, you can get different pets, which I modeled myself. But yes, this is a Minecraft manhunt game, and I really like this because I managed to pretty much recreate a lot of elements from Minecraft into Roblox. Look, there's world gen, and it generates pretty cool worlds. Look at that, water, beehives, all that, grass and flowers. Actually, oh my god, looking back, I really like this. This is cool. There's origin too. Look at that. This was just a massive leap forward in scripting because this used noise to generate the world. So that's a pretty advanced, relatively speaking, scripting topic. So yeah, I studied up for this. Definitely a leap forward though. For some reason, when I try to play with my server members, it doesn't warp them. Obviously showing that there's some issues, but yeah, I mean, the pros are the super cool world gen, and I still think it's a fun idea. It's just where I went wrong is, well, one, the UI looks quite bad. This crafting menu is something, but also the player is so slow, so it does not make for very snappy gameplay at all. It's very boring at times. It's monotonous because blocks take a while to mine. Pretty much for most games, you want to have a fast-paced kind of feel, so this that is definitely an area where I went wrong. So yeah, takeaways are make good UI, I study up on that, and make very snappy, responsive gameplay. So yeah, that's Manhunt. Okay, this is one of the most revered games of the group. I made this 1.2 years ago as well, is when I created the initial place. Raise a Child, with 12.2 million visits and still 145 people active. Now, why did this do well, despite being arguably poorer in quality than a lot of the games we've seen so far? Like, I would even argue it's less than Robotics, which I made a long ass time ago. That was one of the first ones we covered, right? I mean, this UI is interesting. It's good enough. And there's certainly an interesting world. You can see all these unique buildings here make for interesting enough world building, right? And, you know, the purpose of the game, hatch an egg and name your baby, and keep it alive until age 20, right? That's the premise. You can monitor its stats with this button, and yeah, so that basically sums up the whole game. Okay, why did it do well, despite the builds being a little tacky? There's a few free models, like I believe this dumpster, right? Well, I guess the only logical conclusion is that it's masterful scripting, game design, art, build style, lighting, animations, and music just summed together in a perfect symphony to create the most well-formulated experience that there is. Okay, that's not true. The actual reason is because LankyBox, the best YouTuber, made a video on it. So this brings into question the impact of social media on a game's performance, and it is without a doubt a huge element. This game was actually a game I wanted to make for a long time, having that interesting twist on the generic roleplay genre, right? I wanted to do that for a while, and when I finally did, people actually really gravitated towards it because it was something new and interesting and a little grotesque, right? Which I believe made it very good for for YouTube playthroughs. The GUIs are okay. They're still bare bones, and the gameplay is repetitive. There is progression, however. Like, you can play for a long time without beating the game, right? You have to age your child for a while, so there is a good sense of progression, but a lot of it is repetitive and could have been done better, is what I'm trying to say. So its outstanding performance does mostly come down to YouTube playthroughs, because at its core, it's pretty mediocre, at least by my modern standards. I made this a year ago-ish, so I'd like to think I improved a lot since then, and looking back, it's not that great at all. in my honest opinion, there's a lot of like poor scripting practices. I'll give you an example. Like, let me go to the shop. Each of these sellers has a server script inside of them rather than a module that loops through all of them and applies the code. It each has a server script in it, which is a poor practice if you didn't know. But that just comes with being a newish scripter, right? Everyone pretty much does that mistake when they start off. But yeah, I mean, I guess it was just a new, shocking enough, right, to draw attention from YouTubers, and because of that reason, it did very well. Which then, I guess you could make the argument that creativity goes a long way. If you make something new and eye-catching or creative, it might draw in a lot of attention. So that's, I guess, what I'd have to say about this game. The next game is Mupp's Pizza Delivery. This was made 1 year ago, roughly, right? And it had 500,000 visits, which compared to all of these is pretty good, but compared to like Raise a Child, it's not as good, right? It only has 3 active. And why is that? Well, there are 2 things that I would sum that up to. The replayability being very poor, and I think it's too difficult. The enemy is called Maurice, and his AI is way too aggressive looking back, so I would largely attribute those 2 things as to what stopped it from doing as well as it could. And it's sad because I'm playing this right now, and I really like this. The world is so well built. Like, look at this environment and lighting. This is easily the best build and atmosphere so far. There's even custom art. It's at the time, this was easily the best in terms of quality experience that came out of our group, right? And I had help with this too, it's worth mentioning. 5 other people alongside me worked on this. So yeah, it's just so sad because this is so much better than Raise a Child in a lot of areas, right? But not in replayability, which is probably what came back to bite me. Thing is, it's a simple story game, right? You beat the story and you're done. That's where it ends, right? And that's the problem. You beat it and you're done, and there's nothing else. So that's why I wouldn't really make a story game nowadays if I really wanted to hold a player base for a long amount of time. But yeah, it's just a game about delivering pizzas until you escape the town, win, and that's when the story ends. Things I did good were there's a lot of cool lore. Builds are great. Sorry, I did not build it. A friend did, Ren. Things about the game though that are good. The builds are so good, and the atmosphere is so good. The lore is good. The drawings are good. It's such an upgrade in almost every other area from the past games, but I just fumbled on the progression. So just make sure there's a reason for people to come back and play again. Like, don't have it so that once they beat it, it's over. Like, there's nothing else to do. So that is what I'd have to say most of all. Is that. So look at this shop too. This is so well done. Yeah, overall a huge leap forward, I would say, in terms of quality. Just, you know, when you're making a game, make sure there's a reason to keep playing, right? But yeah, that's all I have to say for this game. Mupp's Pizza Delivery. Okay, Cats versus Water. This one was pretty recent. Started work on it 8 months ago, right? Something like that. Right off the bat, there's some great artists involved in this game, and it's still doing the best out of any of the games. I think this is more than Raise a Child. Yeah, it's a little bit ahead of Raise a Child. It doesn't have as many visits, but it also hasn't been around that long. And this is a tower defense, and I would like to go into why this got as many visits as it did. So since this is recent, I learned at least how to make interesting GUIs. It's kind of goofy, but it's interesting, and it's smooth. Look at this. See? That's smooth, right? There's all these labels you can get, and this building is really good. My friend Threesto did it. He specializes in building, so, you know, it's gonna be good if you have a dedicated builder, right? The UI is stylistically consistent. It looks goofy because it was drawn by me, but it's pretty good if I'm not trying to toot my own trumpet. But it's a pretty big step up. But yeah, like I said, tower defense, where the theme is the enemies are cats and you shoot them with water to defeat them. There's a fully functioning tower shop right here with custom art, and there's even achievements and a leaderboard. So how do I say that? It's obvious why it got more visits. It's just a huge step up from the previous games in every way. Like, it goes without saying. That just comes with experience. You'll learn how to make good GUIs. You'll learn how to make good lobby systems like this. That's all I can really sum it up to, is that it's just breaking out of the diarrhea layer as we mentioned at the start. It's like, if with enough experience, you'll just slowly improve in every area. So, but if I had to list out some practical reasons why this did well, it's the strong emphasis on progression. You can save games, as you can see here. You can play endlessly. You can unlock towers and unlock their upgrades too. So a ton of focus was put on progression. I had learned my lesson at this point after Mop's Pizza Delivery. So really hone in on that when you're making something. And I mean, yeah, just the quality overall is a lot better too. Like the coding, I fully leaned into modules at this point. I used to not use module scripts because I was a arrogant dumbass, right? I thought you could get away with only server scripts, and you can. It's just the organization is so much better with modules. These towers are all right. I mean, they use marketplace meshes, but they get the job done, and UI is smooth, the gameplay is smooth, and it's really unique. Like, look at these effects. And so if I had to attribute a few factors to its success, I would say it's a unique spin on the tower defense genre. The towers are all very unique in of themselves, and the cats have some interesting abilities too. It's very colorful too, which might help. Like, the style is very consistent and bright. GUIs are smooth and consistent as well, and the progression is all there. There's saved games in endless rounds. All of that coming together led to a really successful game. 3.5 million visits and 150 people still on it. So this took so much work, though. I'm going to be honest. Tower defenses are one of the most labor-intensive genres there are, so be aware. I'd say it paid off. I really like this one. This is when I would start classifying my own projects as good or decent, right around this area. Yes, this was a huge leap forward, and I really do love this game. But without further ado, it's time to step into the modern day project, which obviously isn't out yet, but Parenthood, the successor to Raise a Child. It is obvious why I would want to start a project like this is because Raise a Child is such a good concept, but as we saw with the game, it was quite poorly done. So having a new game with all of my current skills, all of my current knowledge would be amazing to see, right? I can load up the place here and show you what we have so far. We kind of just started. There's a lot of unnecessary things. But yeah, I mean, if we already look at the UI, there's a new custom toolbar, which is really smooth. You can see the baby has new AI too. It'll follow you and sit when it's close to you, right? It's just going to be, ignore that. He won't say that in the real thing. It's just going to be a super polished and good version of the original Raise a Child. So I'm super excited to work on this, and I'm looking forward to its release. But that is the end of the timeline for now. I was thinking about switching to a new engine after Parenthood, like Godot, probably. So it'll be interesting to see where I go from there, but that is my whole journey. I hope there was at least a few nuggets of good information to take away from that, and that it gave a realistic expectation of how long progressing as a developer can take. But I enjoyed the journey. It's really rewarding to improve and see more people enjoy what you make. So never give up. You'll get out of the diarrhea layer at some point if you keep going. I'm gonna hop off. I've been recording for like 3 hours. Thank you guys for 100K, really. I'm gonna work really hard to make the upcoming projects even better than everything here. But that's all from me, so bye-bye. Boo! I made an itty-bitty promise on stream that I would read a bedtime story to a random member as a thank you for joining the channel memberships. So excuse me while I find a place to sit down. All right. Let's see. Oh, pretend that book is still in my hand. This one goes out to Elias Quickness. The Fox and the Grapes. One night, a sunny day, and one fine and sunny day, a fox was strolling along, minding his own foxy business. He thought he might sit down under a shady tree and have some lunch, as he was a bit thirsty and hungry. Then he realized he had left his lovely packed lunch at home. "Oh, you foolish fox," he said to himself, but just then he looked up, and what should he see but the most delicious looking bunch of purple grapes he'd ever seen in his whole life. They were just sitting there hanging from a grapevine that ran along the branches of the tree. The grapes looked like they were about to burst with the tastiest juice, and the fox's mouth began to water. "Oh, I've got to have these, just got to," he muttered to himself. "I shall fill my foxy face with them." The bunch of grapes hung from a very high branch, just so the fox... my reading level is apparently below first grade. He hadn't jumped high enough and missed it by a long way, so he walked back a little and took a running leap. Up he went, but not high enough, and his paw missed the grapes. He kept jumping and jumping, but every single time he missed. Now he was hot and tired and thirsty and hungry and cross. He sat down under the tree and looked up at the grapes in disgust. "What a foxy fool I am. What am I doing, wearing myself up, jumping up and down on a hot day like this, just to get a hold of some horrible, stupid, sour grapes?" So he got up, made a cross face, and off he went. And the moral of the story is that people pretend to dislike things they can't have. Wait! That's deep. Huge thank you to all of my cool freaking members. I freak with y'all. Good night.